Contributors to Volume 2 of the Made in LA fiction anthology series read from their latest works at Stories, Books, and Café on August 9th, 2019.
I propped my hand up on the pocket of my jeans, letting the gleam of the brass greet his arrival. The usual baby blue sky and flecks of cruising white clouds were suddenly subdued. The sky was blotched with looming heather overcast. The sun's rays beamed down through gaps in velvet canopy. Cockroaches scurried from every orifice of the plaza. Some huge-ass ones, skinny ones, and even some with egg sacs beaming out of their backsides. My body shivered as if I felt the skin of my old man's that was straight. I hated it. I shifted my feet and couldn't help but step on some. The crunch of their bodies permeated the slow drawl of the mariachi's throatful hum. I bobbed in my head for a second, creating words to his beat in my head. So many gangsters dreaming about a reckless life. I ain't even giving up. I'ma get mine. I get a lot of cash as fat as you could flatline. Then the bugs climbed up his legs and disappeared into his black uniform. He smiled and a feeling of doom washed over me. He was a man that was gray. You could see his teeth were partially transparent. His smile opened up the world, placid, steel-colored saliva tainted his mouth. His face was clean-shaven, with patches of flaky eczema that were as dull in color as dried toothpaste on your favorite sweater. He had strands of regal, metal-wired hair sticking out from the corners of his tilted black sombrero, embroidered with silver thread. I blinked a few times and squinted. My eyes searched for the bugs, then found them hanging on his suit like decorative buttons. They shined in the absence of the sun. Una serenata, he called out to me. I took off my baseball cap. My highlighter bright dreadlocks fell onto my tattooed forehead and eyelids. I flexed the bill of my cap and put it back on. I was not in the mood for the tricks and trade of the drum. So that's my excerpt, and basically the inspiration for this story came from, I basically have been working for Head Starts for the past 15 years. I'm a preschool teacher, and I work in areas where people predominantly speak Spanish or are learning to speak Spanish and speak an indigenous language, so we learn to speak Spanish together. And basically, I have worked with parents or families who do have gang members within their family. It just, for me, I felt compelled to kind of tell that story because we're talking about like him kind of having a connection with the mariachi music and him kind of not having that connection of tradition and value, and him kind of valuing money and ambition and dreams and not taking accountability for what he's doing in order to reach that. So that's something kind of that thrive, that thirst, that's very quintessential to LA life a lot of times. And then you also have that very like Mariachi Plaza, you know, it's just this beautiful place, it's this cultural place. And what better setting and what better story to tell when we tell old traditions meet new traditions and old ways of thinking meeting new ways of thinking and how that translates in speculative fiction. So.
I came up here to read the biography of Abigail Walthausen and to introduce her to the group so that she can read an excerpt from her story and then talk about a little bit about its origins and where it came from. I will now read you her biography. Abigail Walthausen lives in Los Angeles, where she writes and teaches. So please join me.
Even with that short, I've never gone by Abigail before ever. It just seemed like the fancy thing to put.
So Abby's coming up here, and she's going to tell us the story behind the story.
Am I telling the story behind the story first, or just reading the story?
Okay. Where do you want to do it?
Okay, I'll start reading. Paul liked to brag to his neighbors about his plantings, in particular the fire-retardant trees, the scrub oaks and the cherries. But what these trees never ended up retarding was the dust that came up the side of the hill in the fire season, whether fires burned or not. Ash smoke or dust, those dry months coated every leaf and weed. liked to brag to neighbors about the height of his corn, and Margaret wondered whether those same neighbors ever hoped for a bag of cobs to bring home and boil. But height or no height, Paul's corn never fruited well. The kernels stayed puckered without their summer sugars. He bragged about the way animals loved him and the furniture he built them in return. The bird feeder was charming. It hung on an arm that could retract into the kitchen window with a little pulley system. Then, there on the counter, Margaret could fill its 4 separate little troughs with 4 different types of seed and a little reservoir for hummingbird nectar as well. What she did not care for was the possum ladder that went right up to the attic from the sitting room. Paul wanted the critters to feel comfortable in the crawl space in their eaves, but Margaret was sure they were peeing up there, and the ladder would welcome more nests, and more baby possums would mean more possum pee. A wood-frame house, she told Paul, can only absorb so much possum pee before there is rot. He bragged least of all about his patronage. Hollywood directors, a well-known actress, a bookseller, a gallerist or two. But even though he bragged only about things made by his own hands, these brushes with fame set him glowing. When Margaret was in the studio with him, when she helped him tighten the press, when he peeled the paper from the block, a smugness surfaced on those days when the gifts and the help and the invitations came in. Sometimes that satisfaction was wholesome, and she savored Paul as he looked right there in front of her, pressed side at the moments before first printing. For weeks he would polish a woodblock, attend to it with delicate engraver's tools where other lesser artists would hack away with gouges. And then they'd translate his engravings from things of sawdust and stars, shadows and texture that only imply image, to something plain-spoken, black and white. He beamed too at the way the ink looked crisp along the jagged edge of a mountain, or the finest line, a scratch, made the wispy edge of a figure's thigh. And there was the bite that wood on paper made. They pressed, and the pricey Japanese paper yielded. Margaret did other work for Paul too, out of the studio. When she wrote his letters, responded to commissions, invoiced galleries, the printing press haunted her. She missed it as she sat at the typewriter. Each crisp black letter she coaxed out of the agile modern machine, a reminder of the real work, the greater work. This typing, it had once made Margaret her living. She'd worked downtown, a copywriter climbing the ranks. But now typing was not just words. It was shored up by a reserve of the little bricks of wood and the huge clamp, and the hours and hours of studio time that whiled away while she typed and kept house and slept and waited to be called in for a hand. Margaret stepped out to the mailbox for a moment. It was early for anything to come, but she had her outgoing letters and a clothespin. She could as easily have pinned them up on her way out for errands, plenty of those today, but she always liked to test the air first. From around the bend came the sound of gravel and dry leaves, then Martin talking loudly. "Well, Margaret, tell Paul that it looks like Ingrid is getting her street lamp after all," he said from across the road, walking and winking, arm in arm with Isabel. "We'll have to see how many helpless damsels are saved by this new edition." They took their exercise at this time, and today, as always, were overdressed. Him in a jacket too heavy for the weather, her in a shawl. Something from travels to a place with scenic peasants. Hungary? Peru, maybe? They were formal and bundled, and Margaret did not care for the way that he took Paul's side about the street lamp without ever stopping to ask hers. Martin and Isabel had learned from their particular type of marriage to count on consensus, to have a co-conspirator. How nicely that subtle fortification went together with the formal bundles of their clothing. Just because no one in the neighborhood liked that old gossip Ingrid didn't mean that her fears were wrong. Up here on the hill, Margaret could turn her head south and see downtown, north and see Glendale. There was nothing stupid about acknowledging that this was a big city. So this story came out of some research I had been doing because I moved to LA 4 years ago and came upon this cottage that belonged to a 20th century printmaker, a wood engraver named Paul Landacre. And the cottage is up at the top, almost all the way to Frogtown, kind of if you go all the way up Echo Park Avenue and over the hills. And it's landmarked by the city, it's kind of decrepit, and I do some printmaking myself, so it really appealed to me. And as a teacher myself, I was like, how could this be like a field trip and experience, whatever. So I started designing this walking tour that I now give to a lot of tourists where we go to Paul Landacre's house. But anyways, I spent some time in the archives at the downtown library reading about Paul Landacre and his life and his wife. And the wife really started to fascinate me because she was kind of his business manager, as was the case in a lot of, old artistic relationships. Male genius has a woman behind him, kind of taking care of all the things. So anyways, Paul and Margaret lived up in this house in this kind of beautiful bohemian paradise, him doing beautiful, beautiful, delicate wood engravings, her kind of forging his career for him. And the more I read about their relationship and these kind of details, the more I was interested in the dynamic between them. So that's where this story came from. Thank you.
Thank you, Abby. So you can see that this anthology has a range of genres in it. We have urban fantasy, we have historical fiction. You're now going to hear some contemporary fiction, also a little bit on the grittier side, from Gregory Thompson, who is a Pushcart Prize nominee. He writes fiction, nonfiction, plays, and memoir. His work has appeared or is forthcoming in the Main Review, Storgy Magazine, Writers Resist, 521, Cowboy Jamboree, Full Grown People, The Offbeat, a lot of very great publications. His work also appears in this anthology and Writers Resist, the Anthology 2018. He was named a finalist in the Tennessee Williams New Orleans Literary Festival's 2015 Fiction Contest. Congratulations. He earned an MFA in Creative Writing and Writing for the Performing Arts at the University of California, Riverside, Palm Desert. Please welcome C. Gregory Thompson.
Hello. I think I'll talk about it first because the piece I'm going to read is sort of extrapolated from the entire story. The story is called Two Kings, and it's about two individuals. The story starts. The story starts with a guy jumps off of a freeway overpass onto another person's car. And the person that lands on the car is still alive. The person that lands on the car is an immigrant from Mexico. The driver of the car is a drug dealer. This all takes place in Tahanga on the 210 freeway. And the drug dealer doesn't know what to do with his body because, of course, he's got drugs in his car and doesn't want to go to the hospital and raise the attention of the authorities and so on and so forth. So what he does is he takes the guy home with him to his house in the hills of Tahanga and nurses him back to health. So it's the story of the two characters and how they sort of get along. The drug dealer is white, does not speak Spanish. The immigrant doesn't speak English and only speaks Spanish. So they end up having this sort of like hand gestures, and he knows a little bit of English, and the other thing is Spanish, and so on and so forth. The part I'm going to read is only from Salvador's perspective. That's the immigrant. So, and then I don't know where the story came from. They've asked me this question before. I don't know. I mean, just sort of like, I'm like, what can I do that'd be kind of fun and interesting, and like some of my other ideas that sort of came to me. A car crash, the guy falls in the car, and then what happens between the two of them. So that's sort of the genesis of it. Santa Anas, that's what they call them. Devil winds, El Viento del Diablo. Salvador learns of them when he's first in El Norte. Fiercely they blow, hot sometimes, others cold. They piss off men and frighten children. The mountain passes, the canyons give them life. They shrill down at more than 40 miles an hour, tossing palm tree fronds into the streets, stirring up dust and grit, and making the people of Los Angeles act crazy. L.A., Salvador's new city. The name's so pretty in Spanish it reminds me of Mexico, of home, El Pueblo de Nuestra Senora La Reina de Los Angeles, the town of Our Lady, the Queen of Angels. Little towns all over Mexico are named after the Virgin too. Devil winds cold make his eyes water and chap his skin on a Tuesday night in January. End of the day, his last on a job painting a house in a place he doesn't know. La Crescenta, a town near mountains he can see from the flats below. A 2-hour bus ride up from the single room he shared with 7 men, all like him, in downtown L.A. A room the landlord kicks them out of that morning. Where will he sleep tonight? $40, all he makes for 2 days' work. The only job he has all month. When he doesn't work, he puts his hand out, walking in traffic on Alvarado Street, holding a cardboard sign with something written in black marker. He recognizes the word hungry, hombre in Spanish, a sign he finds in the gutter that another pobre like him leaves behind. Strangers rarely help, a dime, a quarter, and $1 bill. Not enough. The burning, gnawing in his stomach never leaves. 3 meals a week is about all he gets. Homeless, he walks for hours. Where's he to go? Walking across a bridge that spans a freeway, he stops in the middle. He climbs, up the chain-link fence, a protective barrier to the concrete roadway below. At the top, he stops and looks down at the rushing by cars. He's Salvador, his grandfather's name, his mother's father. 49 years ago, his mama gave birth to him in their town, Dos Reyes, 2 kings, located in the state of Jalisco. Last year in December, he paid a coyote to smuggle him across the Rio Grande into the U.S. No jobs in Dos Reyes, no money to support his wife and little girl. Not a man. A man takes care of his family. A family he probably won't ever see again. $3,000 his debt to the coyote. Money he doesn't have, dollars he won't ever possess. He jumps up into the night sky. He's flying. Freedom. The air, icy, burns his skin, seeps beneath the windbreaker he wears. Then he feels nothing. Unafraid, he's not there. Gone into the ether of time. Non-existent, soul-fleeing, earthly confines. Plasma, tissue, bones, blood-lacking form, void of humanness. Now he knows everything. He returns to his physical body a split second only. When it hits something hard, metal, warm, roaring and moving faster than the devil wins. The hurt doesn't last. The pain, the ache of broken bones departs quickly. Angel-like, he soars back up, rapidly, out of body, to that happiness he never knew until now. Wants to remain there. He looks down at his mangled body lying on the hood of a car, speeding down a freeway he doesn't know in El Norte. He wonders what's happening. What did I do? Am I dead? No, still alive, pain of his broken body, a distant ebbing echo. The car stops, fast, trickling him forward. He almost falls off, but the dent made by his body hitting the car's hood holds him in place. He lays twisted and torn, the iron and steel protecting him. An orange light blinks on and off, on and off, on and off, and the car slowly moves back onto the freeway. Where is he going now? A funerary chariot. The car slinks along neighborhood streets, slow and fast. Abrupt turns and sudden stops. Is the driver escaping? His body jostles back and forth, side to side, in time to the swaying movements of the rumbling machine. Who's driving? His eyes wide open, looking for knowledge, for answers. His 2 legs and 1 arm hurting so damn much. Cracked, broken from the velocity of his 200-plus pounds slamming into the metal of the car. Blood trickling from open wounds, drying in the rush of air. He's unwhole, shattered at the edge. An open door, ethereal figures beckon to him. They call to him in Spanish, asking him to join them to go with them. Where are we going? He starts to follow. They're his long-dead abuelos, his grandparents. They say to him, come, ven, mijo, ven. Trees, shadows, the winds, a tall white man who touches his neck, then darkness. He no longer sees his body. He leaves it, now, a heap of flesh on the hood of the car. He floats off, above, away. Salvador, his mother calls to him. He is 5, and they are at his grandfather's farm in Jalisco. He's in a field with the animals, the sheep, the cows, the goats, and the chickens. Running, playing with his cousins. He's king of the hill. They have wooden swords. They fight each other off the dirt mound to be the supreme ruler of all the land. Salvador, 1 more minute, Mama, I'm king of the hill, he tells his cousins to obey his commands. or they will be sent to the dungeons and held prisoner. We're leaving now, Salvador. Come, please. Be a good sweet boy for your mama. He shouts back to her, I'm coming, mama. He enters a vortex, winding around and around. He runs up the dirt mound, back down and up again, over and over, repeatedly. He doesn't mind. Time ceases. He runs up and back down, up and back down, up and back down. He hears himself speaking foreign words. A little, he says. Who's he talking to? His eyes flutter fast, but he doesn't see. A blur. A room somewhere. He lies in bed, white light overhead. The room smells damp and musty. Shadows move over him. Someone speaking to him in English. His body hurts the most unbearable pain.
Can't introduce yourself, Cody. All right, so next is Cody. He is a brilliant sci-fi writer, and I highly recommend you check out his stuff. You should check out everybody's stuff. We have bookmarks up here, by the way, if you would like some information. Also, we have a website, madeinlawriters.com. There's a lot of info on there. Events, submissions, bios, all of that fun stuff. So, without further ado, I will introduce Cody. Cody Sisco is the author of speculative fiction that straddles the divide between plausible and extraordinary. His Resonant Earth series includes 2 novels thus far, between Broken Mirror and Tortured Echoes, and a short story prequel, Believe and Live. The 3rd novel in the series, Altered Bodies, will be published in...
Soon.
He's working on it. Cody is a 2017 Los Angeles Review of Books / USC Publishing Workshop Fellow. He is also a co-organizer of the Los Angeles Writers Critique Group. His startup, Bookswell, makes the book scene in LA easier to navigate, introduces readers to new writing, and weaves together digital and real-life literary experiences. Did you happen to bring any bookmarks for that?
Yes, those are up at the front counter where all the books are also on sale.
Bookswell is an amazing thing that he's working on. So if you want more events like this, sign up on that. So without further ado, Cody Sisco.
I'm going to read from the story that appears in Volume 2 of the anthology. Its title is Face. I should preface it by saying when I wrote this, I was commuting back and forth to USC every day, slogging through the 110 downtown. And I don't know whether I imagined this at the time or if it was something I imagined later. It's not clear to me. But anyway, the story is about a guy named Degan who, while he's driving on the 110, sees a face on the side of a overpass and becomes obsessed. My story, like many of them in this anthology, deal with obsession and addiction and all of those dark edges that are so easy to play out on the urban landscape of LA. So at this point, he is desperately searching for this face to try to figure out whose it is, how it got there, all that stuff. It's the middle of the night, he's at home. I turned on my phone, blue glow lighting up the room, my finger hovering over the Maps app, which displayed markers of several possible final destinations: desert, ocean, bridge, ravine, building. Then, instead, I conducted a search for the face with inadequate precision. The first few searches returned news stories of a rapper who stopped traffic both by looking like he might jump from an overpass and because he had an 8-pack of abs and pecs like 2 slabs of beef. Via Twitter, I found plans for housing developments on a few vacant lots left scattered throughout downtown, and a list of macabre freeway deaths in LA County, topped by the man who was launched 100 yards in the air and stuck to a sign above the 5. Macabre, I know. I fell asleep with the phone in my hand. The next morning on my way to work, I resolved to get a photo of the picture of the face, a pic of a pic, a perfect example of the derivative digital economy, though this was easier said than done. My windshield was pitted and never seemed to get clean, no matter how much Windex and scrubbing I applied. When I tried to stick my hand out the window and snap a pic, I couldn't get the angle right and the focus was off. One time, I pulled to the side of the road where the 101 on-ramp met the 110, but the face wasn't visible there. I needed to stop where there was no shoulder. Easy peasy. In the middle of stacking books at work, while I felt feverish with sweat running down my back and swamping my pits, Aaliyah came up, brows scrunched, and frowning at her iPhone. On the back, plastic rubies and diamonds made a swirling pattern. You know Aunt Kima? Met her at the Rams party? Nope, I don't think so. I'd been at her party for one sober hour of utter confusion and an unknown number of hours of inebriation and vomiting. A childhood shuttling back and forth between the East Coast and Ireland had prepared me well for West Coast debauchery. It wasn't my first blackout. Then how does she know you? Texted me with some bullshit. She held the screen towards my face. I wiped my brow and reached for the phone to see better, but Aaliyah held it back and gave me the stink eye. I squinted to read the message. Tell your boy Degan to watch out. Bad jujus. And then a string of inexplicable emojis. I met her gaze solemnly. Can I ask what exactly is a juju? Aaliyah smirked and studied the message. She thinks this some good gossip. What my people call crack. She looked at me in warning. Don't say that here. You'll get your pretty teeth smashed and a whooping besides. Then you can call me Gold Grills. I mugged a thuggish posture, a proper look for a ghetto leprechaun. She rolled her eyes and laughed, a layered sound both guttural and high-pitched, cavorting like music. Neither of us fit in with people we considered our people, so we could share these private jokes in a sanctuary full of learned tomes, ugly keychains, and private-labeled condoms. I knew better than to say such things on the street. So, how she know you my boy? Aaliyah asked. Fuck if I know. Does she have any advice for getting the jujus off me? I'll ask. She typed out a message. The response came back right away. Tell him to stop searching. I gasped, feeling a burning coldness on the bottom of my feet, like stepping onto snow without shoes. Don't worry, she cray-cray, spends it all in organic teas and seances. I laughed hollowly. Aaliyah lifted an eyebrow, but left me to resume stacking books. I had no idea where to pick up, so I took the pile back behind the counter and pretended to click through the inventory system for an hour, all the while trying very hard not to think about strange warnings from a crazy lady, and more importantly, why I couldn't heed her advice. That afternoon, on my way home, I found a side road that perched on a hillside overlooking the interchange. Although I couldn't see the face, I could study the landscape, the movement of the traffic, the way late-day light slanted into places that previously had been shadowed. After the sun set and the landscape skewed toward a violet hue, I saw the perfect spot, a place where the 110 squeezed alongside an ivy-covered slope behind an apartment building on Sunset. It was nothing more than a wide part of the shoulder where the face could be visible to someone standing there, but it required hopping barbed wire surrounding the apartment complex wall or dashing across 5 lanes of traffic. I wouldn't try the stalled car trick again unless I had to, but maybe a smaller vehicle would do. At work the next day, I asked Aaliyah if she knew anyone with a scooter I could borrow. Vespa? She asked. Sure. Nope, Vespas are gay. They're Italian. Italians are gay. Not gay enough. They've got the Vatican. Super gay. I shook my head. Not nearly enough, believe me. Try one of those electric ones, lemon or whatever. I want to take it on the freeway. No, you do not want to do that. I do. You'll get flattened, smeared. She wrinkled her nose. The next day, I downloaded an app and found an electric scooter lying on its side in front of the central library at the feet of a homeless man wearing a blue bandana and with an American flag on a small stick poking from a basket on his wheelchair. He saw me looking and put a foot on the scooter. $5, he said. It's not yours, I replied. Not yours, he repeated, mimicking my voice in a high whine. Had I sounded that desperate? I gave him $5, mentally making a note that I'd need to spend an extra half hour at the bookstore and add it to my timesheet to make back the money. I was on a razor-thin budget. Every dollar counted. At least once a day, I saw someone sipping from an obscenely large plastic cup full of sugar slurry and wondered how they could afford to spend that much money on getting diabetes. The scooter bounced and lurched underneath my feet as it made a loop onto the freeway. I ignored the honks of drivers irritated that I could weave through slow-crawl traffic faster than they could, and more than a few astonished stares. They were penned in. I was free. The only threat was that a motorcycle would collide with me from behind, but I made it safely to the spot I picked out on the shoulder and looked up. There it was, the face. It wasn't Luis, and now I was sure it wasn't anyone I knew. Sad with longing, desperately disaffected, begging for connection. Maybe it was one of those composite images made by an artificial intelligence program that combined 1,000 faces into one. Or maybe it was a face from history, someone who died before I was born. For one confused moment, I thought it might be my own face. I feared maybe I'd come down with a rare disease, facial agnosia, also called face blindness. But when I snapped a selfie, I did recognize my own face, which was rounder, less emo, and more freckled, so that theory was debunked. I took a dozen pictures at various zoom levels and exposures, cursing myself for not bringing a real camera, for not taking any photography lessons, for being so clueless about one of the cornerstones of 20th century art and the lifeblood of new media. There was one photo, taken right before I bailed, that had the right light balance to enact my plan. And then it goes on. So, yeah, more in this anthology. I don't think I have anything more to say about the story, but I did want to say that we are going to have Q&A afterwards, so you are able to ask any and all of us questions about our stories, but also about the process and all of that. After our last reader of the night, the amazing author, Allison Rose. Allison and I share a kind of weird and dark sci-fi brain in the best possible way. And when we were putting together the first anthology, she was like, oh yeah, I got a story. I got a story. I'm like, okay, I have faith. Yeah, it's all good. And then she hits us with a novella. And I won't say more about it because she's going to read from it, but this novella is amazing in its technical capability, in the way that it makes you think it's doing one thing, but then swirls you around. And so I was thrilled. So I'm now going to introduce Allison Rose, who is a novelist and screenwriter from Los Angeles, which I knew, maybe you already knew, but anyway. Tick, the first in her young adult science fiction series, tackles themes of mental illness, artistry, and violence. It has been followed now. This is the bio from first. It has been followed now by book 2 in the Tick series, which is called Vice, and the third is forthcoming. While Allison's stories vary in genre, her focus centers on the struggles of complex female characters. Please welcome Allison Rose.
He always sets me up too good. I gotta live up to expectation. Yes, as Cody mentioned, this story ended up being quite a massive novel. It actually started out being a screenplay, cliche, and I found a purpose for it in this particular story, in this format. It actually is told through the perspectives of 4 different women, and I set it up as it's a contemporary noir, basically about Hollywood and about how, while there is a very known issue with young women being sexualized in media and whatnot, but how women can also perpetuate that as a means of using that to help themselves. So the story is called Between Broken Pieces, and I'll start with the preface and then move on to the first chapter. The City of Angels. A haunting stillness creeps over the hill, soaking fallen leaves in a suffocating density, until the trees open up and she appears, sweating, heaving, and racing through the woods. The thumping of her footsteps matches her labored breaths, high-pitched, feminine gasps. She runs, and runs, and runs from whoever is chasing her. Dare she look back? Of course she does. The wind sweeps her hair in a wave, exposing her terrified yet beautiful face. She's slender, but strong enough to outrun and outlast her chaser. And when she stumbles, she finds her feet beneath her. There is another voice, a man's, deep, jagged, and hoarse. The voice sounds out of place, not from whoever is chasing her. It belongs to someone else. Up ahead shines a porch light, a beacon on a dilapidated house that serves as her only solitude. In 2 steps, she scales the stairs, thumps across the porch, caring not about how much noise she makes. She wants to be heard. So does the outsider's breath. It gets louder. If she hears it, she makes no move to find the source. She goes for the door handle, a rusted knob that won't turn, despite how many times she twists on it. With both hands, she pounds on the door. Help! Somebody help! He's going to kill me! Sure as her warning, a shadow falls on her, a ghostly, hooded figure. Gloved fingers curl into the collar of her button-up and pull, ripping the threads that secure the buttons to expose her breasts. The outsider breathes again. It does not belong here. There's no doubting that now. Someone else is watching. Someone not here in the woods, but from some other vantage point. Perhaps from some other time. Unable or unwilling to cover up her nakedness, she pleads with her captor. Please, please don't kill me. The predator grabs a handful of her breast and squeezes. She cries out in pain. Maybe also pleasure. The outsider's breath hitches, goes silent. A knife catches the glint of the porch light an instant before it rips through her trachea. Blood sprays everywhere, flows down her bare breasts. Her hands find the gaping hole in her neck. She gags, she cries, she slumps to the floor. The outsider's voice returns with a gurgling, orgasmic moan. Glass suddenly encases the horror on the porch, separating her and her captor safely from the outsider. This is not real life, this morbid and oddly seductive scene. This is make-believe. This is a movie, playing on a living room television. The film goes silent, muting the noises of the beautiful victim's final gasp for life. All that is left is the conclusive sound of a fastening pants zipper. 1. Alice. By the time he zipped his pants, we were well into the danger zone. That the kids hadn't caught me bent over the kitchen counter with their father up my ass was impressive enough. That Matt actually climaxed was the real miracle. Time had kicked by on the wall clock, the lurch of the second hand marking each agonizing moment until the TV caught my eye. There she was. I had expected her to make media circuits to promote her latest film, but I didn't expect she would be intoxicated at 6:30 in the morning for a network spot, hunched over the desk, cleavage barely heard by the lower third graphic. Mallory Braun, star of Between Broken Pieces. There was something about her. Something about the way she leaned into the camera, like she was falling through the screen onto the counter next to me. Those beautiful eyes filled with dread and boredom. It was invigorating. It was sickening. I couldn't look away. Bowed over the desk, Mallory lamely grasped for her composure, a magician about to accidentally spill the secret of the trick while knowing full well the audience was not fooled. I have done enough sex scenes to know how to make it look good, Mallory said, each word dripping with a persistent Midwestern inflection. The reporter's eyes flickered down her shirt. There's a lot of Oscar talk surrounding this film. Are you excited to be part of such a noteworthy project? Deep in her own story, Mallory ignored the question. The scene takes place in a cemetery, which is a weird place to do it, but there's this part where he has me bent over the headstone and he's pounding into me. That was when that climaxed, gurgling and gasping. As he cleaned himself with a dish towel, it occurred to me that he had also been watching the interview, bathing in the same experience. Was that the reason he actually came in a reasonable amount of time? I went for the remote and I turned to look at him, on level ground from my heels. It was odd to see his face after feeling only his body. I noted the disconnect. Leave it on, I said. Alice, the kids will be down soon and this is getting a little risque. You'll fuck me in the kitchen while the bagels toast, but you're worried about the kids watching Rise and Shine Los Angeles? I said. We can control ourselves. There's no controlling that. His fingers hovered over the off button, but his eyes lingered on the TV. I followed his gaze to see Mallory's shirt open up, breasts heaving with every breath. Her eyebrows rose as she looked at the reporter, having not heard his question. If only Matt knew what was brewing inside that girl. Were he aware of the fermenting filth beyond that arousing exterior? Would he still fantasize about emptying himself inside her? The TV went dark just as the kids burst in, and I stared at the blank screen, wishing to see her again. As a reporter, Mallory Braun was my wet dream. the vessel of a tragic story she didn't know she possessed, my ticket out of the sledge of the Hollywood Express and into the big leagues of legitimate journalism. As a wife and a mother and a woman, I wanted her to go away. There was an accident on the 101. Some schmuck's bad luck never failed to add annoyance to my day, but that accident was something else. It was the sort of wreckage that when she witnessed the gloriously gruesome sight, you were grateful for the delay. I was grateful for the fuel. As I wove through the white cubicles of the Hollywood Express bullpen, my heart raced. I was amped. Trevor stepped into my path, dark muscles shining through his white dress shirt, struggling underneath tightly woven fabric, a presentation decidedly meant for a misconception. Who was he fooling? Trevor's downturned frown attempted to threaten my enthusiasm. You're late. There was an accident, I said, swerving around him. Tell me you saw the Reisenstein shit show this morning. I don't watch AM spots. It puts me in a bad mood for real life. It wasn't his inability to recognize the carnage that made him weak. It was his unwillingness to even look that direction. Mallory Braun described the sex scene from her new movie, I said, and watched as light filled his dark eyes. You're joking. I need my exclusive, Trevor. Put pressure on the studio. Everyone wants that exclusive. She's a hard girl to catch. You should have tried back when she was just that chick who dies in horror movies. There's a story there, I said, and I need it. There's no story, Alice. She's just another cute girl with daddy issues. If you want that promotion, sell me a real story. There's a space waiting for you at the top. Oops. I've been told that before, I said. And then they hired you. Trevor stopped in his tracks, and I made my way to the office. I knew he'd follow. He spent more time in my office than his own, and his had a view. Don't close the door, I said, as he did just that, then sat across my desk. Pitch it to me, Alice. I've emailed you 3 proposals. Paint the picture. Make me see why it's so important to you. Just like that accident on the freeway, my argument needed to sell not the joining familiarity of the traffic crawlers, but the seductive charm of destruction in mind-blowing slow motion. I saw the wreck on the 101, I said, setting the scene. Drove right past it. Mercedes pancaked into the K-rail. It was a mess. Skin pulled around his nose and frowned. He wants to compare Mallory Braun to a car wreck? Not just any wreck, but a luxury vehicle wreck, I said. See, were it a minivan, you'd get a little teary-eyed and worry about how many kids they had in the back seat. If it were a semi, you'd cringe, because who hasn't been next to one of those at 70 miles an hour? A Prius? Well, who gives a fuck about Prius drivers? But a Mercedes, that's different. Makes you think, oh, of course he crashed. He was probably speeding, cutting people off, driving like an asshole. And Adam's got to figure out how to pay off the lease for his underinsured car, and probably also bail since you know he was on something. And now I'm late to work because some douchebag in a C-class couldn't keep his hand off his dick long enough to make it to the off-ramp. Trevor blinked at me. Alice, I drive a Mercedes. I nodded. It's a sexy car. One that people who drive decade-old Hondas aspire to own one day. But when they see one totaled on the freeway, not only do they blame it on the driver, but they want evidence to prove they saw it coming. That they knew it was all a matter of time before every self-important jerk in a fancy car ends up in a crumpled heap on the freeway. People don't just want after photos. They want the lead-in, the setup, time to place bets. It's all part of the experience. I still don't know what this has to do with Mallory Braun, but if you want to capture the play-by-play, join the junket. The junket is for amateurs, I said. I still wasn't grasping my pitch. I need the exclusive. You'll have to go through Juliet Fairchild, and you won't know she won't give you shit. Juliet Prince pretends the press is her enemy, but even she knows in order to sell a new star to Academy voters, she has to do better than Rise and Shine Los Angeles. I just can't see what you find so special about this girl. This is about more than Mallory Braun, I said. It's about what she represents. Which is what? The fall of the Hollywood Playgirl, I said, gaze drifting to the window, visualizing that line as the title of my op-ed. Trevor stood, towering over me. Just don't push too hard, Alice. Not everyone is made of brick like you are. The seduction had been lost on him. How could he not see what was so glaringly obvious? I knew him as a man of instant gratification, someone used to showing up right at the spark of ignition. I, however, was familiar with being held on the edge in eager anticipation of the climax. There was power in that. Trevor, like most of them, didn't know what he was missing. He needed me to show him. They all did. They needed me to bathe them in the experience. So that's the first couple chapters of that. Anyway, I really enjoyed telling this story through all these different characters' perspectives. Is the one Alice that I read is a journalist. There's also a therapist and a fashion photographer and a publicist. So they're all involved with this one young starlet, Mallory Braun, who's up and coming and manipulating them in ways that they're not expecting. Yes, so we are a local author group. That's how it began. And this local author group, Made in LA Writers, created this anthology series. We now have 2 books for sale.
One of the things we wanted to do when we came together was sort of create a community around indie authors in LA, and there's been a huge amount of interest for us and for other organizations that are on that mission. So it is a great place to be able to get your work out there. It's a great place to start to get some publishing credentials and then work your way into your career however you like. So that's part of our mission, is to like kind of go at it together.
Yes. We've definitely found as independent authors how helpful it is to have community, because it doesn't have to be as cultured as people make it seem. So.
I have a question.
Yes.
You do have a question.
I'm curious. Anyone who's willing to answer, what are the bare necessities you think for writing a story? Like what elements that are present to you every time you feel the screws like screwing around your head? Like, what is the bare necessities that you need to get the machine working again?
Yeah. I'm going to jump in and say there's kind of like 2 sides to that equation. One is like, what is the author's inspiration to get started with the story? And then there's what gets a reader hooked and interested and on board with that story. And those can be 2 very different things. I think everyone, and you guys definitely say what inspires you. On the reader side, I think it boils down to 2 things, and that's curiosity and empathy. And usually in that order. You start with a story, you continue because you're curious to see what happens, and you end up caring about the characters, and then really wanting to see how it ends up for them. That, I think, is like the basis of it, but there's a lot of other elements around it. But for me, if my stories are working if they can do those 2 things.
Some kind of conflict between characters.
Oh, it was funny how you kind of pointed out the difference between what inspires the author and what might inspire a reader. Because definitely I've always come at writing stories from a place of really loving a place and wanting to set something, wanting something to happen there. And I think I've written a lot of bad stories set in places that I really love. But stories that people tend to like more, yeah, definitely. Like, as I've grown as a writer, as I've gotten better as a writer, it usually happens that a story is kind of centered around something weird that happens between people. Because that's what people connect to more. As much as, like, privately, I'm, like, riffing on a place, having people interact, having something, something juicy happen. That's important.
Well, I think that's really interesting because everybody had a different answer. And so I think with the bare necessity of you writing a story, anybody writing a story, is why you're writing a story. You have something to say, you're inspired by something, and start with that.
Right, and the most important answer to your question is the one you come up with yourself, not what we'll tell you to do. You should have a little shooting star. The more you know.
I went there too.
Had that tone. Sorry.
Thank you for everyone's input.
Oh.
Appreciate it.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much for coming.
Yeah, thank you.
Really appreciate the story.